Okay, so this is part 2 of the Flash intro, and now we start doing some of the fun stuff. What we're going to do in this part is take a look at how you put an object on the screen and then how you make them move around, right? And that's the whole point of Flash. You want to do some sort of animation. So let's start off and do a little basics before we get into the actual animation. And anytime you have an object on the screen that you want to move, what we're going to be doing in the next couple of days is not just drawing it as actually called a bitmap. We're going to draw it as an object, and it's going to be a special kind of object. So we can place anything on the screen. Let's say we just place a green circle there. What we're going to start doing is the following, and there's two ways to do this. You can double click, so you grab the whole thing, or you can just put your finger down the mouse and trap it all with a big rectangle around it like I'm doing now. I just put my finger down on the left button and it grabs it all. Now, once you've done that, you go up to Modify, Convert to Symbol. So that's the new concept we're going to learn right now. Making something a symbol. And there's three kinds of symbols. Two of them which we'll use like 99% of the time. Movie clips and buttons. So this one's going to be called a movie clip symbol. And you can use whatever name you want. I'm going to call it green. And you press OK. So like, what did that do? Well, first thing it did is it made it one chunk. So I don't have to double click on it anymore. Alright. Second thing it did is it put it in the library. And if you press F11, this thing pops up. And there is that green circle in the library. Now what's cool about this is once you put it in the library, you can drag another one there, and another one, and another one. And you're going, sir, but I could do that with copy and paste, so what's the big deal? Well, what if I said to you now, make all these green balls red, orange, something else? Then you'd have to go into what we call the library and take a look at them in their purest state. Now watch what I'm going to do. This is going to be a sneaky way to get into I used to call it always the underground. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to double click, and you'll notice now, see how it says scene 1 there where my finger is? But you're underneath scene 1 now, and you're in the green world, so to speak. Now what can you do when you're in the green world? We can click here, change the color to red. And then you go back upstairs to the real world, and they're all red. You can't do that if you copy and paste. Alright, so that's using the library. Remember, the library is F11. And you could get to the underground by pressing this if you want. I just like to do it right on the screen and double click. What else can you do when you're in the underground? You can, I didn't show you this trick actually in part 1. Watch when I go really close to the ball. Like first of all, it's not double click, it's just like that. When I go really close, there's kind of a curvy arrow, and if you put your finger down, you can distort it. Now watch what happens to all of them. It's really cool. They all switch. Then you come back up. They're all like that. Alright, so that's how you can modify stuff by going into the underground of a movie clip and change it. Alright, so that's an important concept. You're going to see me come back to this for the next couple of weeks when we start doing animation. Alright, now remember when I brought in that background and I put it right on the stage? Since we're talking about the library, when you go to import, there was another option that said import to library. So this SJB Spring, which is a picture of our school, hey, where'd it go? Last time it went right on the screen. Well, what you can do now is if you press F11, you'll see it. Hey, it's in the library. So anytime you needed it for anything, for another layer, whatever, you could use it. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add another layer. And I'll call this background. And I'll call this the red layer. Now, I want to move the red layer on top and the background on the bottom. Okay, and you know what? I think I could mess this up. So what I'm going to show you too is, see where it says red? There's a little eyeball, and there's a lock. First of all, I'm going to lock it, and then I'm going to put the eyeball on it. Disappeared. Now it's still there, but I just don't want to get in my way right now because I got things to do. So I press F11. Drag it in. Oh, it's not letting me because I'm on the red. See how it's blocked off? Hey, that's pretty good. So if you accidentally do something and you go, oh, you know what? I didn't really want it there. You can block it off. So that's good. That's cool. So how do I fix it? Well, first of all, let's make this disappear again. Make sure you're on the back layer. Now when you press F11 and you drag it, it drags in. Now let's see if you remember what I did in part 1. When you drag it in, this particular picture is huge. So look at, that's the stage, and it's supposed to fit in there, so you can shrink it. You press this and you shrink it down. Okay, and you don't have to be exactly right on, but reasonable. Okay, so that's decent. Okay, so that's first step in animation, believe it or not, and that's called using symbols. And you'll come back to that one a lot more in our next lesson and the next day called tweening. For now, just understand that that's how you do stuff. That's how you make it a movie clip, and that's how it goes in the library. Alright, moment of truth. We're going to start to animate now. Okay, so we're going to wipe out the screen and we're going to start fresh. Now when you animate, you got to get used to these things up here. I really haven't talked about this yet. This is called the timeline. And over here, see how it says FPS 24? That means we're going to be animating at 24 frames per second. So that means that up to about here, when the computer plays your animation, 24 is 1 second. So 48 would be 2, and etc., etc. Let's put ourselves back at 1. And what's the simplest thing we can do? How about we write our name? So I'm going to use the paintbrush, and I'm just going to write the letter C. Now look what happened here. A little black dot showed up. That's called a keyframe. Right? So what happened is that's the first step of the animation. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to frame number 2. And what I want the computer to do is remember what I just did, plus I'm going to do something different. So you have to press F6, and that's how you make a keyframe. And now what do? Well, you write the next part of your name. So now you've got the C and the H. Now watch, this is really cool. I'm going to go up to that pink little square, and I put my finger down the mouse, and I'm going to drag it to number 1. Hey, where'd the H go? Well, in frame 1, you didn't have an H. You only had a C. And then when you go to frame 2, there's CH. And what I'm doing there is called scrubbing. It's sort of giving you a rough idea how the animation is going to work. It's not exactly the animation yet, but it's close. Let's go to number 3. I'm just going to put down the rest of mine. Okay, I'm going to do this fairly quick. So I'm going to write down the A and press F6, and you guys should do the same. You're going to put that, and you go to the next one. You press F6. Remember, you're writing keyframes. Go to press that one, F6 again. Almost done my name. You've got a super long name. It's going to take you a little bit longer. Okay, F6, and one more, F6. Okay, now let's scrub. Okay, so you see how that's, and there's an animation, right? As simple as as you want, but it works. Now, how do you actually play it? Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save it. I want to show you a couple things in a second, and I'll just call it animation. Now, here's how you play it. There's lots of ways. You can press Control and you can press Play. Test movie, that's what I like. And look what it says here, Control Enter. So actually, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my finger on the Control key and Enter. And there it plays. Kind of fast. We could fix that later on, but that's how it plays. Now here's the really important idea. When you just did that play thing, the computer actually made another file behind your back. I'm going to show it to you right now. See where it says animation and it has a red color? That's this thing right here that you're looking at. That's like the raw technique of how you did it. But when you press Control Enter, the computer made another file. This one right here that has a white color with a .swf, which is called Shockwave Flash. And if you double click on it, hey, it plays. And this is what you usually end up behind your back doing when you go on the internet and play games. They are letting you do this file. And you don't need to have the actual Flash program installed. All you need is the Flash player. Okay? And it plays. And it's kind of another sneaky way to hide the way you did your code. You don't want anybody stealing your great game. They can only play it, but they can't see how you did it. Okay, let's have some fun and draw another animation. I'm going to press a circle and draw like a stick man this time. There's his head. And I'm going to use these lines here. I'm going to draw his body. Okay, I'm just using this little line here, right? And I'm going to draw his arms. Okay, here we go. So that's what he's going to look like at the beginning. Now I'm going to go to number 2, frame 2, press F6. and then I'm going to press the arrow. Remember, make sure you press the arrow, and then click away from it. And I'm going to go right near his top of his hand, and I'm going to bend it. And his arm goes down there. Okay, so now we're going to go to 3, press F6. Now I'm going to grab his leg, and I'm going to bend it like that. And then I'm going to go to number 4. You can do whatever you want, right? And I'm going to click away always, and then I'm going to grab this foot, and I'm going to move it like that. And I'm going to do one more. F6. I'm going to click away, and I'm going to bend his arm. Let's scrub that for a second. So there he is, doing a little dance. Okay, and remember, always save it. I'm going to call this one man, and then press Control Enter, and there he is, freaking out, going really fast. Now, several ways to slow that down. You could go to frames per second and change it to, I don't know, 9. What would that look like? Okay, see how it slows it down? The second way would be, you know how you've got these little dots, one after each other? You could space them out. So you could have another one. I'm going to do one at 35. Press F6. And this last one that goes to 35, I'm going to squish his head in a bit. So he's going to go crazy, 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 and then it's going to be a little bit of a delay, probably about a second in real time, and then his head gets squished. Let's just take a look at that for a second. Oh yeah, I've got it set to 9 frames a second right now, so it's a lot slower than what it would be usually. Okay, we could change that, put it back up to 24, or even make it more, and press play again. Okay, so it goes really fast, then there's a pause before I indent the head. So there's all kinds of neat things you can do. So there it is, our introduction to Flash, how it basically works, the mechanics, the text, the drawing, the layers, that's really important, the layers, symbols, which I taught you in this particular video, and some basic animations. Now, the fancy word for this kind of animation where you do it one little bit at a time is called frame by frame animation. This is how the classic Disney cartoons were drawn in the old days. They would do one particular picture, flip the page over, do another one, and if you did it quick enough, you would get that sort of simulation of an animation. Now, before I wrap this up, you can throw in some sound too. If you go to, I think it's in Windows, and then Library, and then Sounds, built in to this are some sounds. Some of them are good, some of them aren't, and you can actually go on the internet and import to the library your sound. So this is almost like a library, right? And what you do is you put yourself on a keyframe. I'm on frame number 5, and then you drag the sound that you want right on the screen. And you go, well, what happened there? Well, look what it did. It dropped it right there, and there's almost like that little sine wave. Let me just play this for a second. I don't know if you can hear that on your video, but there's a dog barking, which is a little bit annoying, but that's basically how you add sound. Okay, now to wrap up, just to make sure you understand what you're doing, how about you try to do the following, all right? And whatever your animation is up to you, but I want you to have a background scene, so you got to have a layer that has a picture. You can get it off the internet, and then in front of that picture, I want some sort of animation. It could be a dancing man, it could be a bird. Now, you realize that we're not making anything go across the screen yet or move. We're just making them animate. But how about you do that and then throw in a sound too? Okay, so there it is, our first day on Flash, and it's kind of cool, neat, pretty easy to do, and hopefully it's a lot of fun.